Welcome back to Sleepers Podcast. Tonight, we're talking about something quiet and a little hard to name. People we used to be close to. People who once knew our routines, our jokes, our worries, the small stories from our day. And somehow, over time, they become strangers. Not always because of a fight, not always because something broke. Sometimes life just moves, and one day you notice the closeness has nowhere to go. Paul is here with me tonight. Paul, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm calm. I made tea, which feels very on brand for this conversation. Extremely on brand. It's not even good tea. That's the honest part. I made it because it felt like the correct object to hold. A prop tea. Fully. Emotional support tea. I respect it. I have water, so I'm less poetic tonight. Water is very grounded. That's your whole thing. That's fair. I'll accept that. So, tonight's topic is when people we knew become strangers. And I think what makes it strange is that it's not always dramatic. Sometimes there's no big ending. There's just this slow shift where someone goes from being part of your everyday life to being someone you hear about sometimes, or see online, or run into at a store. And suddenly you're both doing the polite version of yourselves. The polite version is brutal. It is, because it's not rude. That's what makes it weird. It's almost too nice. Exactly. It's like, so good to see you. How have you been? And your brain is quietly saying, you used to know what I ate for lunch. Right. You used to know my mom's work schedule for some reason. That's the level of closeness I mean. I know exactly what you mean. There are people who knew all the tiny, useless details. Not the big biography stuff, the real stuff. What time you usually woke up, which hoodie you wore too much, who you had a crush on for 3 weeks and then denied it. Strong accusation hidden in there. I'm speaking generally. Of course. Very generally.
And I think what makes it strange is that it's not always dramatic. Sometimes there's no big ending. There's just this slow shift where someone goes from being part of your everyday life to being someone you hear about sometimes, or see online, or run into at a store, and suddenly you're both doing the polite version of yourselves.
The polite version is brutal.
It is, because it's not rude. That's what makes it weird. It's almost too nice. Exactly. It's like, so good to see you. How have you been? And your brain is quietly saying, you used to know what I ate for lunch. Right. You used to know my mom's work schedule for some reason. That's the level of closeness I mean. I know exactly what you mean. There are people who knew all the tiny, useless details. Not the big biography stuff. The real stuff. What time you usually woke up, which hoodie you wore too much, who you had a crush on for 3 weeks and then denied it. Strong accusation hidden in there. I'm speaking generally, of course. Very generally.
But that's the part that hits me. Someone can know the tiny details of a season of your life, and then later, they don't even know what city you're in unless Instagram tells them. And sometimes Instagram does tell them, but in the coldest possible way. Completely. Like, here is a person who once knew your entire emotional weather report. They are now holding a smoothie in Lisbon. And you think, good for them. Right. Good for them. But also, who are you now? That feeling is so specific. Seeing someone's face and recognizing it completely, but not recognizing their life anymore. That's the weirdest distance. Because they don't look like a stranger. They look like proof that you had another life.
That's very true.
Sorry, that came out a little dramatic. I was allowed. One dramatic sentence per T. Then I've used mine. I think that's the center of it, though. They become memory people instead of current people. Memory people. I like that. People who live in a room in your mind. But not really. That's painfully accurate. And sometimes you still have the phone thread. That's dangerous territory.
The old messages.
Oh man. The old messages are not safe.
Not at all.
Because you scroll and it's like, wait, we were hilarious. Or at least we thought we were hilarious. That may be enough. It was enough at the time. But you see the rhythm. That's what gets me. The rhythm of how easy it was. No punctuation, sending 4 messages in a row saying absolutely nothing. But it made sense.
And now writing one message feels like drafting a legal document.
Exactly. Hey man, hope you've been well. Who is that? Why am I a bank? Dear former close friend, I am reaching out regarding our previous emotional closeness. That's bad. That's actually funny, but that's bad. It's strange how quickly warmth can become formal. It is. And nobody chooses that. That's what annoys me. I don't think most people sit down and decide, I'm going to become polite with this person.
No. It just happens through small missed moments. One unanswered message, then a delayed reply, then someone moves, then someone gets busy. Then you think, I'll answer properly later. Because they deserve a real answer, which becomes no answer. Always. The proper answer later is where friendships go to nap. Forever. That's painfully true.
I hate it because it sounds lazy, but it's not always lazy. Sometimes you care too much to send something small, so you send nothing.
And then the silence becomes heavier than the message would have been.
Exactly.
Do you have someone in mind when you think of this?
I have a few, but there's one awkward little story that comes to mind first. It's not deep, but it explains the feeling perfectly.
Go on.
I had this friend in school, Daniel. We were close for maybe 2 years. Not best friends for life, but close enough that we sat together almost every day. We had this stupid inside joke about a teacher's coffee mug. Because it was huge. Like, comically huge. It looked like a...
I already respect the mug.
It deserved respect. So for 2 years, anytime someone had a large drink, one of us would say, "Careful, that's load-bearing."
That is such a school friendship joke.
Completely. It doesn't even make sense unless you were there, tired, 15, and avoiding homework. Anyway, years later, I see Daniel at a grocery store. Very normal adult situation. He's buying pasta. I'm holding bananas like I've never held bananas before. Why do we always lose the ability to hold objects in those moments? I don't know. I became so aware of the bananas. Like, too many bananas. Not enough. What does this say about me? Strong opening image. So we recognize each other. There's that half second of old warmth. We do the whole, "Oh man, how are you" thing. And it's nice, but also stiff. Then he picks up this huge bottle of water from his cart. And my brain goes, this is your chance. The old joke is right there.
No.
I said it.
You said load bearing?
I said, "Careful, that's load bearing."
Oh, Paul.
And he smiled, like a polite smile. But I could see he didn't remember.
Oh, man.
It was awful. Not because he did anything wrong. He just nodded like I had made a very confusing dad comment near the bananas.
Ugh. That hurts in a very small, clean way.
It really does. And then I tried to explain it, which made it worse.
Of course.
I said, you know, the mug? And he went, what mug? And I wanted the floor to become soft and take me gently.
That is very specific humiliation.
It was so mild, but I thought about it the whole walk home. Not like, how dare he forget? More like, oh, that joke lived in me longer than it lived in him.
That's such a good way to put it.
And it made me realize that we weren't holding the same version of the past. I had kept that tiny thing. He hadn't. And that's fine. But it made the old closeness feel uneven.
Right. Because an inside joke is almost like a little password. Exactly. And when the password doesn't work anymore, you realize the door isn't there.
That is better than my banana version.
No, the bananas were essential. Thank you.
They carried the scene.
Load-bearing bananas. There it is. That's healing. But that story really does capture it. The awkwardness of trying to step back into an old rhythm, and the rhythm is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't be mad. That's the hard part. There's nobody to blame. I think we're more prepared for endings when something happens. A fight, a betrayal, a clear reason. It still hurts, but at least the story has a shape.
Right.
You can point to the thing. Exactly. But drifting is shapeless. It's hard to grieve because you keep thinking nothing happened.
Nothing happened, but also everything changed.
I think adult life is full of those tiny griefs that feel too small to announce. Too small to announce, but too real to ignore.
Right.
You don't call someone and say, I'm sad because I saw an old friend's apartment on social media and realized I don't know what their mornings look like anymore. Although maybe we should. Maybe. People would say, are you okay? And you'd have to say, mostly, but also no. I had a moment like that a few years ago with a friend I used to be close to. We weren't childhood friends, but for a period in my early 20s, we talked constantly. Daily. Not even important conversations, just life updates. Pictures of coffee. Complaints about errands. That sort of ongoing background friendship. The best kind. It really was. And then life shifted. Different schedules. Different circles. Nothing bad happened. We just slowly stopped being in each other's day.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into him at a small birthday dinner for a mutual friend. I knew he would probably be there, so I had this quiet expectation that we'd pick up where we left off.
Dangerous expectation. Very dangerous. And he was kind. Warm, even. But it was like talking to someone through glass. We kept choosing safe topics. Oh, that's the worst. Safe topics with someone unsafe topics used to be normal with. Exactly. We talked about work, apartments, a trip he had taken. The weather made an appearance, which felt like a personal defeat. Weather is when you know the friendship has put on a button-up shirt. That's exactly what it felt like. And at one point, someone mentioned a restaurant we used to go to all the time.
I looked at him and smiled because I thought, there it is. That's the bridge. And he smiled back, but only in this general way. Like he remembered the restaurant, but not us in it. That stings. It did. And again, he did nothing wrong. He wasn't cold. He wasn't dismissive. He was just living a life that no longer included me as a regular character.
That phrase is rough.
Regular character. That was the feeling. I'd gone from main cast to cameo.
Oh, man. A polite cameo. With weather dialogue. Very dignified. Did you feel sad right away, or did it hit later?
Later. In the moment, I was just managing the conversation. Smiling, asking follow-up questions, being normal. Then on the way home, I realized I didn't know how to text him afterward. Years earlier, I would have sent something immediately, some small joke from the night. But I stared at the thread and thought, what tone do I use now? That question is so real. What tone do you use with someone who used to know you without tone? Exactly. With close friends, there's no font. You just speak. Right. And suddenly I was aware of every word. Too warm felt like reaching backward. Too casual felt fake. Too formal felt sad. So, what did you send? I sent, good seeing you tonight, man. Hope we can catch up properly soon. The classic. The safest possible sentence. That sentence has never led to a proper catch-up. I know. It's basically a small white flag. It is. And he replied warmly. Something like, absolutely. Great seeing you too. And that was it. Two adults placing a friendship gently back on the shelf. That's exactly what it felt like. Not throwing it away. No, just putting it somewhere. That might be the whole topic. Where do you put old closeness? I think that's why it stays with people. Because the closeness was real. It doesn't become fake just because it's not current. Right. That's important. But it also doesn't always give you permission to act close now. That's the strange part. You can love the memory of someone and still not know what to say to them on a Tuesday. Exactly. And social media makes it even weirder because you sort of keep receiving evidence that they exist. Yes. Before, maybe someone drifted and they drifted fully. You didn't see their lunch. You didn't see their new haircut. Now you see little pieces, but none of the context. So they feel both near and far? Exactly. You know they went hiking, but you don't know if they're happy. You know they got a dog, but not who they call when they're stressed. You know their face, their furniture, their vacation photos, but not. And sometimes you know too much to feel like strangers, but too little to feel close. That middle place is uncomfortable. It is. Because you can be updated without being involved.
Oof. Sorry. No, that's the one. Updated, but not involved. That's exactly it.
I think that creates a very specific sadness. Seeing someone's milestones from a distance.
Right. Like, someone gets married, has a kid, moves countries, changes careers, and you're genuinely happy. But there's also this tiny ache because a past version of you would have known earlier.
You would have heard the messy version. Yes. Not the polished announcement. You would have heard, I don't know if this is the right decision, or I'm scared, or this is exciting but weird. Now you get the final post, the press release, the emotional press release. Clean lighting, nice caption, and you tap a heart. Because what else do you do? The smallest possible participation. Exactly. A little digital nod from the balcony.
There's also that feeling when an old inside joke no longer fits because both people changed.
For sure.
Even if they remember it, sometimes it belongs to versions of you that don't exist anymore. That's true. Some jokes are only funny inside a specific room with specific people at a specific age. And trying to repeat them later can feel like wearing old clothes that technically still fit, but spiritually do not.
Spiritually tight jeans.
Exactly. I've had that. You say something you both used to say, and the other person remembers, but now it sounds childish coming out of your mouth. Not bad, just from another era.
Mm-hmm.
And then you both smile at the memory more than the joke.
That can be sweet, though.
It can.
Not all of this is tragic. Sometimes old closeness becomes gentle. Like, I don't need to be in your life every day, but I'm glad we had that time.
I agree. I think there's a version of distance that can be peaceful. It still has a little sadness in it, but not bitterness.
Right. Like a song you don't play anymore, but still know all the words to.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. T number 2 sentence. You're over your limit, but I'll allow it.
I have a smaller example that is not as emotional, but it stuck with me. I once saw an old friend online, someone I used to talk with constantly, and she had posted a picture of her kitchen. Nothing special, just a normal kitchen. But I remember thinking, I have never been in that room. Which sounds obvious. People move. People have homes you don't visit. But there was something about it. I knew her old room. I knew where she kept books. I knew the chair she always complained about. And now here was this entire daily space where she probably made coffee, stood half asleep, checked her phone, lived her ordinary mornings. And I had no place in it. Not such a quiet hit. It really was. Not dramatic. Just this realization that someone's ordinary life had continued without me. As it should. But I was still holding an old map. The old map thing is real. You know where everything used to be. But the city changed. Exactly. And sometimes you try to navigate with it anyway. That's when the awkwardness happens. You ask about someone's brother, and they say, he moved to Canada 3 years ago. And you're like, excellent. I am a museum exhibit. Or you mention someone they dated years ago, and they face changes. Oh no, dangerous zone. A risky historical reference.
You need friendship software updates.
Exactly.
And with current friends, the updates happen naturally. You don't notice them. But with old friends, you're missing 5 years of patches. Then you open the app and nothing works. Very clean metaphor. Thank you. I'm proud of that one. It makes me think about the difference between losing someone and drifting from someone. Losing has a clearer pain. Drifting has confusion.
With drifting, you keep wondering whether you should have done something. Sent more messages, made more effort, been less busy.
And sometimes, maybe yes.
For sure. Sometimes we do let things go because we assume they'll stay. That's true. I've been guilty of that. Thinking We're close, so it'll survive neglect. Which is not a very nice sentence, but it's honest. It is honest. Friendship needs boring maintenance. That's the unromantic truth. Boring maintenance is underrated. Sending the small message, remembering the thing, making the plan, even when both people are tired. Not every time, not perfectly, but enough. But then there are also friendships that drift because they were built for a certain chapter. I believe that.
Not fake, not shallow, just chapter specific. Like work friends from a job you hated together. Exactly. Those are intense. You speak every day, share trauma over bad coffee, know everyone's complaints. Then one person quits and suddenly you have nothing to complain about together. The friendship loses its weather system. Right. You meet for lunch and realize the villain was the glue. That's actually funny. It's sad, but it's funny. You're sitting there like, so without our shared enemy, who are we?
That's very real.
But I also had one that was deeper. Someone who slowly became a stranger without any big ending. Tell me, his name was Marcus. We were close in our mid-20s. Not childhood close, but adult close, which sometimes feels even more chosen. We worked near each other, lived maybe 15 minutes apart. We'd meet after work a lot. Nothing fancy. Cheap food, long walks, sitting in his car finishing a conversation even though we had arrived 20 minutes earlier. Car conversations have their own category. They do. The car makes people honest for some reason.
He was the person I called when I didn't know what I was feeling yet. Not for advice exactly. More like I could speak in unfinished sentences, and he understood the shape. That's rare. It is. And then his life changed. He got into a serious relationship, then moved farther away, then started a more demanding job. None of that is wrong. He was building a life. I was building mine too, in a messier way. At first we still talked. Then it became voice notes, then long gaps between voice notes, then birthday messages, and the birthday messages got shorter. There was no final conversation, no argument, no betrayal. Just fewer doors between us. Fewer doors. That's good. At some point, I realized I didn't know how his weeks felt. I knew the headline version. Work is busy. Relationship is good. Family's okay. But I didn't know the texture anymore. That word matters. Texture. That's what closeness is, I think. Not information. Texture. The little moods. The recurring worries. The dumb detail from Wednesday. I agree.
Then one day he called me, out of nowhere. And I was happy. I really was. But I remember seeing his name and feeling nervous, which made me sad before I even answered.
Because you never used to feel nervous.
Never. It used to be automatic. I'd answer with some insult, probably.
Naturally.
Lovingly. But this time I stood up straight. Like my body became formal. We talked for maybe 30 minutes. It was good. He was kind. I was kind. But both of us kept summarizing our lives instead of sharing them.
That's a very painful distinction.
It felt like reading each other the back cover. And near the end, he said, "Man, we should do this more." I said, "Absolutely." And we meant it. think we really meant it. But meaning it doesn't always make it happen. Exactly. That was maybe 2 years ago. We've messaged a little since then, but not much. And I still think of him with a lot of love. No anger at all. But he's a memory.
How does that feel when you say it? Strange. Tender, I guess. And a little embarrassing. Because part of me wants to say, no, he's still my friend. And maybe he is. But not in the daily life way. Not in the unfinished sentence way. That's a real loss. It is. But it's not a death. That's why it's confusing. It's a living loss. Exactly. He's out there. I hope he's happy. I'd pick up if he called. I'd help if he needed me. But I don't know what he had for dinner. I don't know what he's worried about this week. I don't know the small stuff. And the small stuff is where closeness lives. It really is. I think there's also humility in realizing we have become strangers to other people too. Oh, absolutely. Someone out there might see us and think, I used to know him. That thought always gets me. Because in my head, I'm the one noticing people changed. But of course, I changed too.
Right. There are probably people who remember a version of me that would feel very outdated now. Same. They might tell an old story about me, and I'd be like, please don't bring that man here. He has been retired. Fully retired. No public appearances. But that's part of it too. Sometimes people become strangers because we're not the same people who knew each other. That's fair. And sometimes the old closeness can't come back because it belonged to old versions of both people. It doesn't mean it wasn't real. Exactly. That's the thing I would want people to feel from this. A friendship can end softly and still have mattered. Yes. And maybe old closeness doesn't disappear. Maybe it changes form. It becomes a kind of evidence. Evidence that you were there. That you were there, that you were known in that season. That someone witnessed you. I like that. Because being known, even temporarily, is not nothing.
There are people who carried me through months. They probably don't even remember that clearly. Same. Someone can be incredibly important in one chapter and not meant to be in every chapter. That can be hard to accept, but it feels true.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you reconnect. Not always, but sometimes. And maybe it's not the same closeness, but it's a new one. That's important too. We shouldn't talk like every drift is permanent. Right. Sometimes you send the awkward message, and it works. Sometimes. Not hope you are well, though. We need to retire that. What do you suggest? Something more human. Like, I passed that place we used to go and thought of you. How have you been? Really? That's much better. Still terrifying, of course. But better. There's a risk in warmth. There is. But there's also a risk in pretending you don't care.
I don't think every old friendship needs to be revived. Some should stay gentle memories. But sometimes if someone keeps coming to mind, maybe that means something.
Maybe it means there's still a little thread there.
Exactly. Not a rope. Don't pull like it's a rope.
Careful with the thread.
Very careful. Soft hands.
I think what I find comforting is that we don't have to solve every distance. Some people can remain part of us without being part of our calendar. That's good. We can miss them without needing to return. We can be grateful without forcing closeness to become current again.
And we can admit it hurts. A little.
Yes.
Because sometimes you run into someone and think, there you are. And also, there you go. That's the feeling. Sorry. That might be tea number 3.
You're abusing the system now.
I know. I'll calm down.
No, it was worth it.
But that's really it.
There you are. There you go. The person is right in front of you, but the old version of the friendship is already somewhere else.
And maybe the kind thing is to honor it without grabbing at it too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Let it be what it was.
Let it be what it was.
That feels like a peaceful place to land.
I think so. Paul, thank you for this. And thank you for the story about the bananas, which will stay with me longer than it should. I'm glad my public grocery shame can serve the episode. It served beautifully. Thank you for having me, man. Always. And thank you to everyone listening. If tonight brought someone to mind, maybe just let the memory be gentle. Maybe reach out if it feels right. Or maybe simply appreciate that for a while, someone knew the texture of your days. That matters. This was episode 6 of Sleepers Podcast. Take care of yourself. Get some rest. And we'll talk again next time.